Hi everyone, I've got another video for y'all. A while back I was looking on Craigslist and I found this dresser and mirror for $75. I couldn't pass it up, so I picked it up and brought it back to the paint booth. The first thing I did when I brought it back was remove the hardware and take out the drawers so that I could strip the top. For the stripper, I'm using Clean Strip's Quick Strip. Make sure you get the 15-minute formula. It works much faster than the 30-minute formula. To apply it, I'm using one of these disposable wooden chip brushes so I can throw it away afterwards. When I'm applying stripper, I like to use a liberal amount. You can never have too much stripper. The last thing you want is for your stripper to dry out, because then you'll have to work a lot harder to get it off the wood. I'll leave the stripper alone for about 15 minutes while it works. Once the stripper's done its job, I'll come back with the plastic scraper and scrape it off the wood. After I've scraped off the majority of the stripper, I'll come back with mineral spirits and steel wool and scrub the remaining stripper residue. After that, I'll wipe the remaining off with a clean rag, then leave it to dry for a few hours. In the meantime, I'll get started working on the base. The first thing you should do before painting any project is make sure that the surface is clean. To clean this project, I'm using Super Clean to get any dirt and grime off of the dresser. That way it doesn't interfere with the paint finish. I just spray a little on, then wipe it off, and it's good to go. After waiting a few hours, the top was dry and ready to be sanded. To sand the top, I'm using this Hyper Tough palm sander that I got from Walmart using some 120 grit sandpaper. This final sanding step removes the last of any stripper residue and allows me to smooth out any imperfections. After I got the top finish, I started sanding the drawers. When I'm sanding, I'm not trying to sand all the way down to the wood, I'm just trying to scuff up the surface so the paint has something to adhere to. Once I'm done sanding the drawers, I wipe everything off with a damp rag, and these are ready to be painted. For the base, I'm using a detail sander. This just helps to be able to get into corners and smaller areas rather than using the bigger palm sander. Now that the base was ready to be painted, I taped off the top so I didn't have to worry about getting any paint on it. Somewhere along the way, I lost some of the footage during this project, but the good thing was that I streamed part of the project, so I have this footage. Once the dresser was fully prepped, I was ready to give it a few coats of primer using rust-oleum spray paint. This step helps the paint adhere better to the surface. It also covers up a majority of the wood, so I have to use less paint. And finally, it helps seal in any bleeds that may occur from the sanding that I did earlier. After the final coat, I decided to go ahead and stain the top. I'm using Minwax Dark Walnut. To use this type of stain, you apply it to the wood, let it sit for about 15 minutes, and then wipe it off. If it isn't as dark as you like, you can wait a few hours and then apply some more to try and darken it up. For the base coat, I used an ultra white and a satin finish. This is your typical hardware store paint like Valspar, Sherwin-Williams, Behr. Whenever I'm painting furniture with a brush, I like to work in thin coats. Painting in thin coats allows the paint to level out a lot easier, so you get less brush strokes. That was really important to me on this project because I was planning on glazing it a little bit later, and I didn't want the brush strokes to stick out. When I'm painting by hand, I'll typically do about 5 or 6 coats. These coats are thinner, so they dry faster. In the long run, I feel like it's worth it for the better results. Once I had the base finish, I was ready to start glazing so we can get all those details to pop. For the glazing or antiquing, I'm using the same wood stain that I used on the top. I work in sections because it likes to dry up on me. I just brush it on and then immediately wipe it off, leaving some of the stain in the corners and details so it highlights those. Once I get the first side how I want it, I continue around the dresser, wiping everything down so that it matches. The most challenging part with glazing with wood stain is making sure that everything matches, especially the drawers. Typically what I'll do is wipe them down outside of the dresser and then put them back in and wipe them down again so that I can make sure everything is perfect. And with that, I'm finally done with the glazing. I did do the mirror this whole time. I didn't record it because it's basically the same thing that I did on the dresser except on the mirror. For the top coat, I'm using this Minwax lacquer out of an aerosol spray can. This is a semi-gloss. When using aerosol lacquer, I like to spray a couple very thin coats just to get the lacquer started on the wood. Then I'll come back with 320 grit sandpaper, sand it down a little bit, then apply a thicker coat, allow that to dry for about 15 minutes, and then spray 2 more thinner coats, and everything turned out nice and smooth. This is what everything looks like after the first coat. It looks alright, but if you were to touch it, it would feel really rough. Here's where I use a 320 grit sanding sponge to knock everything down a little bit, then come back with the thicker coat. The reason I'm doing all this is to ensure that I get a nice smooth coat out of my top coat. If you're ever spraying lacquer and it looks uneven, just sand it a little bit, then come back with some lighter coats and it should all work out. Lacquer is a solvent-based top coat, so as long as you don't wait too long, subsequent coats will re-wet the previous coats and allow you to get a smooth finish if you don't overdo it. Once I was happy with the top coat, all I needed to do was put the hardware on this dresser and I'm done. I didn't refinish the hardware because it looked perfect as it was. Overall, I'm very happy with how this dresser turned out. It took me a little bit longer than I wanted to originally. I spent 8 labor hours working on this piece. I have about $40 in overhead from supplies. I only paid $75 for this dresser. I'm gonna try and sell it for $700. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments. Appreciate you watching this video. That's all for this one. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to my channel, hit the bell for notifications, share this video with your friends, and I'll see y'all again soon.